Hi everybody. Well, here is another video, so I guess it'd be video 2 in the series In Case You're Interested. And this video is going to be called You Don't Always Have to Sell It. You know what I mean? You don't always have to sell it. And isn't that a curious thing, actually, about selling? Because a lot of times we're trained to think in terms of, can we sell? Can we sell what we have to offer as musicians? Are you marketable? That gets to be really interesting territory, doesn't it? If you're thinking of art, let's say you didn't have to worry about money. Okay? You didn't have to worry about having a career. Let's just imagine, you know? Where would your art be? What directions would it take you? You know, I think back, I always wanted to be in an orchestra. Always. And I went and played for my teacher, Steven Zellmer, and I probably said this on some other videos. My first lesson with him, I was 13. And he said, you know, if you want to get a job in this country, you're going to have to sound a little bit more like everyone else. And notice his choice of words. A little bit more like everyone else. In other words, a little more standard. He said, your playing is very, very unique. I mean, I was 13. And he could hear that I had something in my life that needed or was fortunate enough to find a medium to put it through. In this case, music. In this case, the trombone. And he never tried to change me. He'd always come, for example, even on working on orchestral excerpts, or even Bona studies, Pasquale Bona's rhythmical articulation, those studies, which I use with my students. He would just come from the love of the simple joys of playing the instrument. It was never a brutality. It was never, come on. It was never hard-nosed. And even my teacher before that, who was second trombone in the Minnesota Orchestra, fantastic player, Ronald Ricketts. They were never like that. At all. And of course, John Swallow wasn't like that either. When I went to the New England Conservatory for the short period of time that I did, I maintained a close relationship with John Swallow after that, after I left the conservatory. But it was never like that with me. And so I was very fortunate enough to have teachers not want to change me, And this is a delicate, delicate thing. They knew I wanted to be in an orchestra, especially, Ronald Ricketts and Steven Zellmer. And Zellmer really, he took out, we were working on an excerpt right away. And he would pass his love of the music on to me. And the love of the trombone's role in the orchestra. And that transferred. I had it already. Okay? And so we met on that level. And how it didn't need to be the most flashy things. If I played something, we would try to make it closer to what we were looking for or what he was looking for. And he would pass it on in such a way that, do you understand what we're looking for? And very clear, simple, but he had a mystical aspect about him too. So that gelled with me even in those days. In fact, after my first lesson, he asked me, when's your birthday? Which I do to a lot of my students now. It's kind of like a fun thing because there's so many influences in life. And so he brought life into it. And I had that. And he never tried to stifle it. He never made, now, trombone is something. You get your butt into that practice room and da-dee-da. Didn't do that. Of course, he didn't have to with me. Because I had to be yanked away from the instrument. Because I just wanted to play all day long. So, I know this is a bit of an overture to talking about the main subject matter, which is you don't always have to sell it. Now, when someone teaches, it's their love, their example of inspiration, determination, fervor and passion for the art, and just plain joy of wanting to play. That's going to transfer. As well as their standards and work ethic. They don't try to sell that to somebody. So this trying to sell it to someone, I have a bit of a problem with that language in terms of where is it coming from? And it's usually coming from, if we want to sell something, we want to make money. Now, if you say someone comes from such a level of something, they were so captivating and totally convincing, that's different. Because my wife pointed out to me, Dr. Carol Vieira, she said, sometimes she's working with people and she'll say, I'm not convinced of that you really believe in what you're doing or that you're connected to something real when you're playing. And I use very similar language, like, I just not totally feeling it yet. And so that, saying it that way, is an encouragement, I would think, to say, look, where are you coming from? What do you want to say with this? What do you want to transmit? What do you want to transmit? What do you want to communicate? What is coming from your heart? What is coming from your instinct and your mind or your thoughts? When you're playing something, what have you put together about it? So in looking at things that way, it's very different than saying, now come on, you got to sell it. And I think a lot of auditions, I'm sorry, this is where there's a skill in taking an audition, and then there's art. And it takes a lot of finesse and control and command and just the right amount of musicianship on top to, sell it. So I understand that's part of it. And I don't know why so many people are afraid to get up at an audition and actually play almost play like they would in the orchestra. It's very tailored to don't do anything that's going to turn heads away. Whose heads are we talking about? What are people listening for? They want something like the Three Bears. Oh, this person, that's too cold. This person, that's too hot. Oh, that one's just right. I don't know. There's a division there. There's a division. Why can't you really play the way Tannhäuser's talking to you? Why not? What are people afraid of? What can't they hear? Can't they tell that in an orchestra setting that would sound different? Now maybe the oboe players or clarinet players or string players for some reason couldn't. I don't know. Are we trained to listen to the spirit of a person? Or the depth, the content that they're trying to play the music in? And just not have it so virtually fine and intact. Because I guess if they sound a little wild, then people think, well, could we work with that? I understand. But let's go back to what we were saying. Imagine. Just imagine. And you didn't have a career. And you could play those things the way you really felt it. And you know what? That's what I did for my BSO auditions. In fact, that's what I did for every single audition I ever played. And I think that's why a lot of conductors in those days liked me. Some of the musicians in the orchestra were a little cautious. True. But a lot of the conductors liked me. I wonder if because they could hear spirit. They could hear freshness. They could hear the youth, too, that wasn't afraid. Isn't that fascinating? In case you're interested. I am.